Part of the challenge in the conversation around mental health today comes from what I call conceptual fragmentation. So if you look at mental health, and I'm talking about like depression, anxiety, and specifically like the hardware causes, the hardware factors. Part of the challenge that we see comes from a sort of one problem, one solution paradigm that falls flat in the face of a multivariable or complex reality, right? So, for example, take something like depression and imagine a wheel with multiple spokes and different points out on this hub that represent the different contributing factors to something like depression. Now, you might have a researcher out of Harvard whose whole last 3 decades have been dedicated to understanding the role of brain metabolics and depression. And this person might say, this is the one thing. This is the cause, because if you look at metabolism, if metabolism's off, well, then sleep is disrupted. And if metabolism is off, then, your ATP and mitochondria aren't firing properly in the frontal lobe. And if your metabolism is off, then you won't have enough stable glucose to support the functioning of the brain, all of this, right? So multiple points along this wheel where you can take this one dimension of brain metabolics and say, don't you see, this is the core cause, and this is what is causing all these things, and here's the complexity of it, right? Because as fun as it is to have that one note, and you're like, this is the thing, this is the answer, the truth is that every single one of those points out on the spoke of this wheel has interdependent reciprocal relationships with all those other factors, right? So it's like, okay, so we talked about brain metabolics. Let's look at inflammation, right? Okay, if this person, let's look at chronic stress activation. So if you're chronically stressed, again, drawing a line from this spoke, or this the edge of this spoke on the wheel. If you have chronic stress activation, your sleep's going to be disrupted. You won't be able to regulate. Your relationships will be impacted. Over time, your cortisol will corrode the areas in the brain that regulate the stress activation system, and so it will become untethered and have like a feedback cycle on itself. And so this is how you can have someone who has stress activation, even trauma, and that becomes this unending cycle where people just never come down, and you can propagate it out and see, here's the impact on one's metabolism downstream of something like stress activation. So each one of these major variables has this sort of impact, because we are complex adaptive systems with multiple systems working across scale, and a dysfunction in one impacts the others and is also cushioned by the others. So there's a sort of cascading entropy that can come to the whole system. So when people look at mental health, what they find in the market of treatment are these individual authorities on with their conceptual models of the disease, but they're splintered. Again, conceptual fragmentation. And so each is holding just one part, right? They're the blind men touching one part of the elephant, and there is not most people don't find an integrative framework to bring all of those together, and that's what's needed. And this is what I would say is not just psychology, but psychoneurobiology 2.0, right? Where you can have a unifying frame. And I think that unifying integrative frame comes from a systems theory, complexity science approach. When I say complexity science, I'm talking about Stephen Wolfram's work for reference. And all of this, software and hardware alike, can be reduced down, though can't be ultimately reduced, our experience. But all of it can come down to a shared framework of thinking of this as systems that have inputs, three categories of inputs, prime inputs of energy, matter, energy, and information. And those flow through the system. So anyway, we could talk a lot more about things like control theory or cybernetic models and how we can model this system and how it regulates, and how all mental health is dysregulation. And we can track these multiple variables all at once by drawing these relationships to each other. But there's an approach that we can have, and this approach, this holistic, integrative framework for all mental health, that merges or that reconciles hardware and software conceptions. So hardware, think neuroscience and endocrinology. Software, think psychology, therapy, and even spirituality, right? The subjective and objective, as they are supposedly differentiated as distinct categories, can blend into one, just like we look at hardware and software in computer science. That's what's missing, among other things, right? And until we can have this sort of approach, we will be holding fragments. And the likelihood that we and our children find durable and sufficient and durable improvements in their mental health is nil. There's very little chance. I would say there's no outcomes that I would say are adequate, and better outcomes had better be what we're aiming at, because we have set ourselves and our children up for just horrible realities in terms of mental health. So I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think. Questions, comments, challenging remarks, all are welcome.